Hello, my brothers and sisters. It's Josh Packard. You're with me for another episode of The Golden Image of Churchianity is a Lie. A damn lie. Hey, what I want to talk to you today is about liberty and the importance of liberty. And there's several places that are on the temple that I look at that I see where liberty is being manifest. And I think the lily work that's up on the chapiter on the pillars before the temple, and that lily work is significant because I think that liberty is from the squeezing of the network, and the flowers come because of chains in the network. The chains in the network squeezing, and then the flowers popping out. And I think that the flowers popping out is actually liberty, and that's what I feel. More than feel, but this is what this is what manifests God's righteousness in us is our liberty. So where everyone else is controlled in their thought and the group think about this is what you're supposed to say and this is the theology you're supposed to believe, and when you escape from all that stuff and you're in the liberty of being with God and you're unemployed from doctrines and religious tendencies and from religious opinions and from the groupthink, you're freed from that, and you're in this place that is free to think and free to be and free to express with God. And this place is called liberty. So in our Constitution, liberty was known. Our founding fathers were so smart. If you read any of their letters, you realize how stupid you are. Because in their everyday just joking around conversations, I wouldn't even be able to understand what they're talking about. They're making jokes off Socrates and Plato. They're going around John Locke, and they're talking for all these different philosophers and everything else, and they're just referring to them and making jokes about their work and then using these inferences, and you're just like, huh? I don't even understand what they're saying, but they understood this concept of liberty. And you know what I mean? And liberty is a big deal because it's not freedom. It is in a sense, but it's not. Freedom is dependent upon liberty. Without liberty, your freedom is literally worthless. Because though you can go everywhere you want, the prison is just in your mind if you don't have liberty. So no matter what you do, no matter where you go, that prison always remains on you if you don't have liberty. And liberty is simply being able to think and to speak as you see fit. To be able to say what you want to say and to give your opinions without fear of repercussion or to be cut off or to be removed and isolated from, society. I'm going to tell you, I preach a lot of very unpopular things. And one of the big deals was the people that kept hammering me was the church. They kept hammering on me, trying to hammer on me, but they had no argument. They would just say, you're teaching a cult, you're being a cult leader, you're doing this. They would just throw labels at me with no rebuttals, no genuine understanding, no nothing. It's just because they felt it was wrong. And it reminds me a lot of liberals, by the way. But I know you feel that today. If you're in the church, how about asking questions or having a dissenting opinion? Or what if you don't believe in pre-trib rapture? What if you believe in post-tribulation rapture? What if you believe in there's no tribulation or whatever? What if you believe that you're supposed to live and go through the tribulation as a Christian and that a rapture is a spiritual thing or whatever it is? What if and I'm just using this as an example, what if your church commands that in order for you to be a part of leadership, you have to profess to believe in the pre-trib rapture? First of all, whatever. The pre-trib rapture, what does that mean? That has nothing to do with, it's cool. It's part of the prophecies and the fulfillments of God that we may know when the time comes that he is who he is. But we already know who he is. And so that's not the part of the gospel message that sets us free, but that's going to be a sign of the times, you guys. So I want you to see that that's not even necessary to even believe, but that's a restraint that's put on your mind. And if you go and dissent to that, well, then you can't honestly debate with them, because if you don't agree with what they say, you can't be a part of their leadership or fellowship. Or what about if you're a Methodist and you don't believe John Wesley? If that's really his name, or just Wesley. But anyway, or Calvin, or Luther, or blah, blah, blah. In your denomination, you have to confess that you believe his teachings. And I have one question for you. Did he die and raise for you? No. So in order, just by doing that, you've been limiting yourself to these understandings of doctrine and professing them, and then isolating yourself from the ability to have the discourse with other people as to whether or not that's even right, so that you can even come to a solid conclusion. So there's so much of your thinking that's being controlled that you don't even realize. And then most of the controls are actually put upon you by your own self, because you don't want to let your mind wander in those directions, because you think that it might be blasphemous, or you think that, well, it might lead me off to sin or something. And it's like, so the only true liberty is to realize that God has got it, that he that began the good work in you will complete the work, so that you're able to let your mind wander, let your mind seek after the Lord, let your mind look every possibility and look at everything and rule out what you want, what you don't want, and let the Lord lead you and guide you by his Holy Spirit, and not by the dictates and traditions of men and their fickle stupidity. Now, I want to talk to you about right and left-wing politics. And the only reason I want to do this is I really want to illustrate centrist politics. But the only reason I want to do this is to kind of illustrate to you what liberty is and why it's so valuable and how it's always being sought to be removed. And it's one of Satan's biggest things in what he does. See, throughout history, before our government, everything was by divine right of king. That your rights were dictated to you by the opinions of men or by a single man. And we get to our Constitution, where your rights are dictated to you by God, and they're not touchable by any man's opinion. These are your basic inalienable rights, and they cannot be taken away. Well, in other societies, all the way up through that, they can always be taken away. Everything is at the whim of the people in power. And you have right-wing thinkers that say, because we are superior to you, our understanding and knowledge is better than yours, so you're so stupid, you really don't have much of a say, we're going to kill you. We can kill you, or we can just marginalize you or oppress you because you're worthless. And that was Hitler. Everyone notices that. And everybody's like, oh, well, if so then Antifa must be right-wing, because they do the same thing Hitler did. And you're like, no, they're left-wing. They're motivated by a whole nother set of principles. It's the same thing, really, but from their ideas and their justification for their action is that you're their oppressor, so that they can take from you and kill from you and not listen to you anymore. So right and left wing go unchecked, because there's no foundation of right and wrong with them. It's always malleable. It's always changing, always subject to people's opinion. So look at the Democratic Party right now. I mean, even 20 years ago, the stuff they're saying now would be reprehensible to even themselves. But because of the evolution of their minds and their separation from God, and their wandering further to the left, now everything is by their opinion and by their lust for their own freedom, driven by the fact that their liberty is taken away. And they don't realize what liberty is, so they think that liberty and freedom are the same thing, so they're seeking to be freer and freer and freer, while at the same time eroding their liberty, and liberty is going away. You have to have the balance of liberty and freedom. You can't have, if you have freedom without liberty, you're still a slave, because the prison bars take over your mind. So wherever you go, you carry the prison with you. You don't even realize it. Because the sicker you get, like with sin, the more you sin, the bigger the hole becomes inside your heart, which necessitates you to sin more to try to fill that hole, because you're not understanding what sin is and how it's depleting you. And that's kind of like what the left is doing right now. Is the hole inside their hearts is so massively opening wide, and the mouth of hell, which is in their hearts, is open so wide because they don't know God. They've separated themselves from their creator and their maker and their sense of wholesomeness. So what happens is, the further away they go, the more radical they've got to be in their perversion in order to get any satisfaction. Just like drugs. You start out with pot, go to coke doesn't quite cut it, meth doesn't quite cut it, let's go up to heroin, whatever we're going to do. It just keeps getting worse. Your need for the drug to get to the same high becomes worse. Same thing with sexual perversion and the exacerbation of it by porn, which takes people to like the furthest reaches of perversion. before they even start on their trail of perversion. So the perversions that we see so bad inside the leftists is because they're so far away from God, and that large hole in their heart necessitates a filling, and so they'll do whatever wickedness they can to try to fill it, and they're going to get worse. And literally, if you look at them, they're following that same program right to the T. They were just a little corrupt. Then they started messing with God, trying to remove his monuments. They started, hating God and being more atheistic and embracing their homosexuality and embracing their LGBTQ and embracing of the murdering of children and embracing all this stuff. And look at their madness that is following after them. They're completely out of their minds and not even realizing it. They're such slaves to their sin that it's like unbelievable, but they will not point to themselves as the reason. They will not acknowledge that sin out of pure pride and arrogance. But the problem was I would let them go to their destruction, except for they affect me. But because of their stupidity and their arrogance and their pride, and because they won't take accountability for their sinful acts, they have no one left to blame for their oppression but us. It's something we're doing. It's those damn conservatives. It's those Christians. They're causing this division. They're causing this, not realizing that they themselves, because of their actions, and they're reaping more and more and more wrath upon themselves. It's evident to see. Look at their stupidity. I mean, even a 3-year-old would go, "What in the hell is wrong with these retards?" And they can't see it, because they're under the madness. Likewise, if you go to the right-wingers, like Hitler, where you had Christians all abounding there was Lutherans, there was Catholics, there was everybody there during that time. But because of they're separating from God, and because of their going about to establish their own righteousness, seeking their freedoms to do what they wanted to do, they separated themselves from God so much that they were sending women and children and people to ovens, letting them make human experiments on these people, knowing it. Look how evil they were. And they were Christians. They were people, just good, right people, but they stepped away from God for their own ideas, right and wrong, and killed his people, the Jews. That's stupid. I mean, what happens is, so only in the middle, in the centrist, is where the right mind is, where there's a balance of liberty and freedom. Because you have to restrain your freedoms in order to maintain your liberty. You have to restrain your liberty to maintain your freedoms. And you have to find that balance. And that's what God does with the scripture. He gives us that ability. These are the things that will take your liberty. These are the things that will take your freedom. This is what you avoid to do in order to maintain both. Because this is the most blessed existence there is. And this is what we used to do as a nation. We would restrain evil so that the good may flourish. You see what I mean? We used to be God-fearing, and we used to obey God and his commandments for our benefit, not him. He's not any more pleased with us or not pleased. It's for us to have a good existence for our children and our families. It's called wholesomeness, which is a dirty word to any of those that are underneath the power of sin, because they don't know what wholesome means. And wholesome means that big giant hole that is causing you to raven and to sin and to be perverted and to seek all these things to fill it. Well, that is called iniquity or corruption. Wholesomeness is the things that fill that hole. Wholesomeness, family, children, honesty, integrity, hard work. I mean, these values that people cling to are not just ideological. They are also wholesome in the fact that they provide satisfaction. Look at the Mormon church. Whatever you may say about the Mormons, but it's been my experience so far, and it's limited, but what I've seen is they do Christian better than anyone. They set up their church right in the middle of their community. They keep everybody accountable. Everybody is living according to the law. Everything they live is a wholesome life. Everything is centered around family and freedom and around the nation. They're very patriotic. I mean, everything they do are the things which God has prescribed to bring forth a wholesome, well-adjusted, happy life. And their kids are more intelligent. Their sense of community is stronger. They have a lot going on. And I'm going to tell you right now, their doctrine is shit. It's a lie. Joseph Smith is a complete lie. He's a charlatan. But because they do the things that gender to wholesomeness, they are wholesome and they reap the blessing because of it. So when you're looking around out there, like my parents, I mean, they had their flaws and everything else, but they basically followed the rules that were good. You don't lie, you don't cheat, you don't steal. You're good to your fellow man. You know, they didn't cuss. They didn't do these things, not because they were Christian, because they weren't, but because they realized that it demotes them in society according to their positions as they were, and they're very professional white collar people. So anyway, they did many things not because God commanded it, but because they saw the benefit to their life. They were financially prosperous. They had lots of friends. They were well respected. I mean, out in public, I mean, we knew better inside of our house. But I mean, literally, they did everything that was that necessitated, and that not necessitated, but they did everything that was, well, yeah, necessary for wholesomeness. I mean, at least externally, and to the bare minimum. So, in their lives, nobody was in prison, nobody was addicted to drugs except for me, and nobody had any massive problems because they were just kind of doing what was right. Both of my stepfather's kids were both well adjusted. They both went on and did very successful things. They're very good people. I mean, by and large. So we know that it's not about being a Christian isn't what blesses you. It's literally by doing the wholesome things. I mean, at least physically. Now, where I am blessed beyond what my parents are blessed, or were blessed, because now they know the Lord too. But I also have intellectual liberty now, and spiritual liberty with my God, where I have freedom in my mind to think and to speak and to do whatever I want. My wife is always constantly trying to get me to restrain my freedom, to keep my liberty, because I'm a wild man. My wife, she's really way more conservative than I am as far as, because I'm a little bit of a wild guy, and I'm more expressive, and my life's an open book. I'll tell you anything about me. I don't care. And she's very much more private and reserved, and so she's always trying to rein in my freedom. And I'm sure it does help with my liberty, but it's always a struggle. I'll tell you that much. And she's really, a lot of times she's mad at me because I'm literally just, I'll tell you anything about myself, about my marriage. I'll tell you about anything. I don't care. So anyway, back to liberty. That's why God's ordinances and statutes are beneficial. They give you the balance between liberty and freedom so that you can prosper, that your children can prosper. Okay. So now in the church, I want you to see the right wing, left wing ideology is still alive and well, and the groupthink, to where if you dissent against their teachings, they're gonna come down on you. Just so you know, if you're a Methodist and you don't agree with everything Wesley says, well, then you can't be a part of our leadership. Well, if you're Calvary Chapel and you don't believe that the pre-trib rapture, you don't believe in that because you don't know for sure. You can't honestly say, yeah, because there's no one that's 100% sure. But they go, oh, well, you have to say that in order to be part of our leadership. Or if you dissent to Luther, or if you dissent in the Lutherans or in the Calvinists, you don't consent to Calvin or all of his teachings or the tenets of their Calvinist teachings, or Methodists or Lutheran or Arminians or whatever it is, and you don't submit to those tenets of their teachings after the orders of the men that were the founders of their movements, which those men would never have ever laid that burden on you. But they're limiting their minds. They're limiting their liberty. They're limiting the ability to think, the ability to actually have discourse and discuss, and to really see if they really believe these things. So I'm here to tell you again, what God has given us is liberty, and that's the gift. Liberty and freedom. I'd rather have liberty than freedom, honestly. I mean, I love my freedom. I love to be able to do whatever I want. But you can have complete liberty without being free. You can have complete liberty inside of a prison cell. And liberty is more important than anything in the world. It is, when Patrick Henry when he says, "Give me liberty or give me death." Was it Patrick? I think so. Anyway, that he was not kidding around. Liberty, once you have liberty, you'll never give it up. The problem is you've never known it. You've always been underneath the browbeating and the group thinking and the political correctness of your denomination or your crowd or your group of people. You've never known what liberty is. Once you step out with God and have that liberty, you'll never give it up. I don't care. It's the most. It's where all joy is and where peace is in that liberty. So, anyway, folks, hope this is helpful today. Feel free to contact me anytime. On Facebook, I'll have to try to get a hold of you. We get a lot of wackos, so I got to kind of filter out who I can get a hold of and contact. Maybe we could start with, I don't know how we could do it, but anyway, if you can give me suggestions, that'd be great. And anyway, I'll talk with you all soon. Have a wonderful day, and really, you've been saved utterly. Just enjoy it. All right, bye.